and welcome back to the LFS podcast with me, Caoimhan Ferris. This week on the show, an almost perfect start to the Euro 2024 qualifiers for the home nations as England, Wales, and Scotland have a positive start to their campaigns. And earlier in the week, the man who is widely regarded as the GOAT, Lionel Messi, scored his 800th goal for club and country in Argentina's 2-0 win over Panama in a friendly. And the two greatest managers in Premier League history, Arsene Wenger and Sir Alex Ferguson, have become the first to be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. All of that and more to come on this week's LFS podcast. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of our LFS podcast here on the Live Football Streams channel. A very good afternoon to you all and welcome in. For this week's episode, we're going to be talking through the Euros, the Euro 2024 qualifiers, the home nations, how they've started, Ireland as well, France as well, talking about those countries as well, and all the big stories from the last 6 days on those of those countries. Sorry. We're also going to be talking about some club football as well. We're going to be talking about the Women's Super League, how the Merseyside derby went in that one. A feisty derby between Rangers and Celtic in their Women's League as well. And also, we will be taking a look at the drama around clubs sacking and getting rid of managers in the last week. Of course, Julian Nagelsmann sacked by Bayern Munich, and of course, Antonio Conte leaving Spurs as well. We're going to be talking about their replacements, a possible replacement at Spurs. Who will that be? And of course, we know the replacement at Bayern as well. So we have a packed show for you this week and full of exciting action. Let's start then with that Merseyside derby, and Everton were held to a draw by Liverpool in a feisty Women's Super League Merseyside derby at a raucous Goodison Park. Watched by a club record crowd of over 22,000 fans, the match was the first women's derby to be played at the men's stadium. Everton captain Gabby George opened the scoring in the 27th minute, floating in what looked like a cross from close to the byline, but curling it out of reach of keeper Rachel Laws. Liverpool levelled when Taylor Hines' low shot ricocheted off Katie Stengel, but the forward managed to get the ball under control, turn and shoot low to the left, and just out of reach of goalkeeper Courtney Brosnan. A thrilling second half saw a goal apiece chalked off as Leanne Robe's effort from the Reds was denied by what looked like an innocuous challenge by Kerry Holland on Brosnan. Jess Park then curled a stunning shot into the top corner for Everton, but it was ruled out for a handball in the build-up. But despite some superb efforts from both sides, neither could find the winner to give their expectant fans bragging rights. In that table, the Everton stay in 6th with 21 points after 15 games. Liverpool sit in 8th with 15 points after 15 games. Now to what many would call the GOAT. And Lionel Messi scored his 800th goal for club and country in Argentina's 2-0 win over Panama last week. He scored 800 goals for club and country. He reached that landmark in the 2-0 win over Panama in Buenos Aires last week as part of the team's World Cup homecoming tour. That was also his 99th for Argentina in all competitions. He scored his 100th, surpassed the 100th international goals ratio, as he scored his 7th international hat-trick at a friendly win at home to Curacao. The 35-year-old forward reached the landmark when he opened the scoring on 20 minutes in Santiago del Estero. He added 2 more before the break to complete a quick-fire treble. Chelsea midfielder Enzo Fernandez also scored before Argentina paraded the World Cup trophy in front of more than 42,000 supporters. It was Argentina's second match on home soil since beating France in Qatar on penalties in December to win the World Cup. Incredible to see Argentina going from stride to stride, and they won 7-0 in that game against Curacao last night. Early hours of this morning, actually, Wednesday 29th, yeah. What a fabulous man he is. An incredible footballer, and, you know, I'm going to have a bit of chat on him, because why not? He's Lionel Messi. Why would you not have a bit of chat on him? This guy is just incredible. I mean, you look at him and you think, the only closest person to him is Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, and they were so close up until very, very recently, and a lot of people's minds were made up by that World Cup win, saying that he's the GOAT now because he's won the World Cup, something that Ronaldo hasn't done. But he's just going from stride to stride. And at 35, you know, the world is at his feet now, really. He can do absolutely anything. And with the form that he's in at the moment, not club form, PSG in a bit of a difficult spell at the moment. And we'll see what way they return after the international break. But Lionel Messi's death certainly not the problem at the moment. Certainly not the problem. Most certainly not. As you can see, performing for his country and performing more or less for PSG in a difficult and tough period for the French club. Right, moving on then, and let's move on to the international games of the week and some huge results in those Euro 2024 qualifiers. We'll start on Friday. Yeah, we'll go to Friday night first, and we'll go to France against the Netherlands. And Kylian Mbappe scored his first goals as France captain as the World Cup finalists began their Euro 2024 qualifying campaign with a comfortable win against the Netherlands. The hosts were ahead after just 2 minutes when Antoine Griezmann curled in from Mbappe's pass. Defender Dayot Upamecano made it 6 minutes later as he bundled in. Mbappe got his 37th goal for France when he drove in before powering home his second late on. Griezmann had reportedly been unhappy at being overlooked for the captaincy role given to Mbappe, but there were no signs of friction between the pair as they celebrated Mbappe's first of the night in the 21st minute. The Paris Saint-Germain striker's second 2 minutes from time was a stunning solo effort as he left the Dutch players falling over in an attempt to block his shot before thumping a finish into the bottom corner. They had a chance, though, the Netherlands, to get a consolation goal with a late penalty, but that was saved quite comfortably in the end by goalkeeper Mike Maignan. Wonderful. I mean, we look at France and we look at, you could easily say at this point, what, it could be unpredictable what they could come back to international football after that defeat in the World Cup final in December. What team was really going to show up? And so far, the two games that we've seen them in, at home against the Netherlands and away at the Republic of Ireland, they have been resilient. They've worked hard. They have been a dominant force. And, France have just been incredible. They're not dominating possession or anything like that, but they're being clinical. They're taking the chances that they're getting, and they're not letting anything slide. They were 3-0 up against the Netherlands after 21 minutes. Now, if that's ever a response to a World Cup final, it has to be a defeat, in a World Cup final. That has to be one of them, because one of the best ones, because France, and I said it on the night, I said this, France 3-0 up at half time against the Netherlands. That was the best I had seen France play since probably the World Cup in 2018, when they were just ruthless. They were just unbelievable. They didn't show that in the Euros, the last Euros in 2021. They didn't show that really, mostly in the World Cup. They scraped through results. They showed a different side to themselves in the World Cup, a team that could grind out results and not just blow away teams with scoring loads of goals. But seemingly in these qualifiers, they seem to be that team again that can do both. They can completely obliterate the Netherlands one night on a Friday night, and then come away from home and grind out a very, very well fought victory. Against a very resilient Irish team who were looking positive after their win in a friendly against Latvia and on the up under Stephen Kenny. France just came to Dublin and were patient. They waited and waited, and Ireland played well too, but they just waited. They weren't impatient. They weren't rushing things. They weren't being over impulsive. They just took their time and found that goal from pure quality from Benjamin Pavard, but unbelievable from France. And I like to see France do well. They're almost my second country, really, when it comes to international football. They're the team that I like to see doing well and performing and winning things. So fantastic to see them against the Netherlands. They've done incredibly well. And I have to say, Kylian Mbappe was sensational. Sensational against the Netherlands. He was just unbeatable. There was nobody stopping him. Just, you just have to be in awe of him, really, at his age. And the type of player he is, unbelievable. So one of the other games really that I thought was of great importance really in terms of the whole international football sphere, and that was England's win over their biggest rivals of recent years, Italy. Well, Harry Kane became England's all-time top record goal scorer as they opened their Euro 2024 qualifying campaign with a first away win victory against Italy since 1961. Kane wrote his name into the history books in the 44th minute when he beat Gianluigi Donnarumma from the penalty spot for his 54th goal, overtaking previous record holder Wayne Rooney. Declan Rice gave England an early lead when he scored from close range after Kane's shot was blocked, before the captain put memories of his penalty miss against France in the World Cup quarter-final in Qatar aside with an emphatic spot kick. Italy whistled off at half-time in their first international in Naples for a decade, improved as England became sloppy. Debutant Matteo Retegui was the beneficiary of poor work from Harry Maguire, who else, whose failed attempt to close down the danger on the edge of the box allowed the Italians to shift the ball to the 23-year-old to drill an unerring finish past Jordan Pickford after 56 minutes. England's drop in performance was compounded by Luke Shaw's second yellow card with 10 minutes left, but they hung on for a vital win. I think I'm going to talk more about the importance of the result here and not much the importance of the performance, because the performance from both teams was just quite poor on the night, really. England were good in the first half, performed very well, but Italy were also incredibly poor, and then the tables turned in the second half. Italy were the better team, didn't really create much, and England were just, well, they were 2-0 up away at Italy. They just sat back and defended. They didn't have a single shot in that second half, England. That's not to their discredit, but what I'm saying is it shows that they didn't have any attacking intent in that second half, and their objective was pretty clear. We're coming here, we're 2-0 up, we're not going to let this slide, and they did hold on in the end, and fair play to England, they got the 3 points in the night, and ended up with 10 men, and they fought hard for the victory. But one thing I have to say is that Italy, again, where do we go with Italy under Roberto Mancini? They won the Euros. Fabulous. Fantastic. Their next objective was to get into the World Cup. They failed to do that. They failed to get into the World Cup. That was a huge disappointment for Italy. Italy, one of the big sides in the world, one of the big nations, one of the teams that are, if they win the Euros, they're pipped to be going far in the World Cup and fighting for the likes of those World Cup trophies and fighting off against those big teams in the latter stages. But that just didn't happen. They didn't qualify. They got put out in the qualifiers of the World Cup. And then you thought, right, new campaign, new set of standards for Italy. At home against England, a team they have good record at home against and a good record recently against. What could go wrong? Italy just need to start with a bit of dominance, a bit of possession, get a bit of control on the ball, and start creating chances early on against England, because we know what England can be. They can crumble if they come under a bit of early pressure. But Italy didn't do that. They weren't allowed to do that. England played so well in that first half that they didn't allow Italy into the game. Now, I'm not saying that that's because England were incredible. It was a mix of the both, that England took the initiative, but also Italy didn't. And that's the thing. Italy kind of put themselves at a disadvantage from minute one. They didn't pressure them. They didn't close down the ball in any real close proximity. They were too far away. They were too lax. They weren't, on it like we usually see Italy are on it. And that just compounded the defeat. At home, in a new campaign, it's a fresh start for them. But they acted like it was the same old Italy from the World Cup qualifiers that just didn't have the desire really in that first half. And that was very disappointing really to see. I was looking forward to a really close fought battle, a really tight game of football. But in the end, it was more or less England took the advantage in the first half, half time. Second half, Italy tried to run it back and come back into the game, but they didn't have enough, and it was too little too late for them. And England know how to defend now. Although Harry Maguire, as usual, giving away a few silly things, but that's Harry Maguire and that's his nature. But with a 2-goal lead, They didn't look like they were going to throw it away at any point in England, you know? And that's the key point. Italy didn't look like they were going to get back into the game. They got a good goal, but after that you think, oh, they're going to really go for this now. They didn't. That's the thing. They didn't. That's the disappointing factor. So, in the end, a very, very good win for England away at Italy. And of course, they followed that up with a home win against Ukraine on Sunday as well. Moving on to another side who had a good home win at the weekend and two very good home wins to start their Euros 2024 qualifying campaign was Scotland. And Steve Clarke's side have been fabulous. They saw a 3-0 victory at Hampden Park on Saturday afternoon against Cyprus and followed it up, listen to this, with a 2-0 win at home against Spain. Spain. Now, sensational Scotland took a seismic leap in their bid to reach consecutive European Championships by stunning Spain in a heroic triumph. Scott McTominay crashed in a deflected opener after just 7 minutes, triggering an explosion of noise inside a charged Hampden Park. Steve Clarke's team rode their luck to stay ahead at the break, only for Scott McTominay to repeat his earlier feat just after the restart to cause chaos in the stands, as well as in the bamboozled Spanish defence. Scotland, in their first competitive victory over Spain for 39 years, now top Group A, 3 points above the humble Spaniards and 5 in front of a stuttering Norway, who drew 1-1 away in the other game in the group away at Georgia. This was one for the lovers. What a weird thing to say. But Scotland, absolutely fantastic. And I have to talk about this. Scotland have been incredible in these opening 2 games. And, you can't get too excited. There's a long way to go in this campaign. They have another 6 games to play. But 2 games, 6 points, 5 goals scored, 2 clean sheets in both games. It's just wonderful, really. Absolutely wonderful from Steve Clarke Scotland. And, after a few disappointing years, a couple of years with a lot of disappointment for Scotland, they haven't had a great last 10 years or so. But it seems like they're building something under Steve Clarke now, and they're starting to really cause a lot of big teams issues, especially Spain. And Spain, what can I say about Spain? They were absolutely awful on the night. They huffed and puffed, and all they did was dive, really. They dived the whole night and were searching for yellow cards for Scotland. I think I heard that Rodri said that Scotland were rubbish on the night. If that just proves the saltiness of a player, it just, there it is, really, because Spain were well below par on the night. And, it's something we've seen be accustomed with saying with Spain is that when the going gets tough, they just lose all ambition, lose all, real drive to win the game. They were 2-0 down against the Scotland side. Now, let's think about it, right? Spain have been here in previous games before, where they're being held out, where they're being stopped. But it's not very often that you see Spain get dominated in a game of football. Not in terms of possession, but in terms of actual fight and desire and real hard work. That's something we've said about Spain is they are that hard working, hard fighting side that pass you to death and just kill you, give you no real momentum in a game of football. But that's not what I seen last night. In that game, I saw the complete opposite of that. I saw that Spain gave up, really, in the game. They had a bit of goal mouth action in the last 5-10 minutes of the game, but I mean, again, too little, too late. Why were you not doing that 70, 80 minutes earlier? When Scotland were 1-0 up, and you think, right, they're going to have a reaction here. Quite opposite. Scotland were the better team in the first half. They controlled the ball. They didn't allow Spain many clear-cut chances in that first half. That changed a bit more in the second half, as expected. Spain made a few changes, finished a few tactical things, and looked a bit more of a threat, but still not enough to really cause Scotland issues. And then Scotland got that second goal early in the second half, and you think, this could be Scotland's night. This could be the night where Scotland do something historic, do complete a historic victory over a big country in Spain, and Spain in the top 10 in the world. They are not a formidable force at the moment. They're a transitioning side, but no excuses, really. No excuses. When you're top 10 in the world and you're qualifying for Euros, you know, you can't have these excuses. Scotland, though, I have to sing their praises, and I have to sing the praises of Scott McTominay. 4 goals in 2 games for Scotland. Absolutely incredible for Scott McTominay. He has been absolutely wonderful for Scotland. He's been undoubtedly their best player since the Euros started, and it could be a shock for Manchester United. Maybe they could be getting that good player that they were hoping that should have got in the last few years. Right then, moving on to a bit of European and manager action, and we're going to end with a lot of manager talk this afternoon. And Julian Nagelsmann has been sacked by Bayern Munich, with Thomas Tuchel confirmed as his successor. The Bundesliga champions are struggling domestically this season and lie second behind Borussia Dortmund. Nagelsmann, who has not been at the training ground this week, that was last week, is understood to have lost his job because the team has gone backwards in the league and the hierarchy have not seen enough player development. Players and bosses at Bayern were also surprised to see the 35-year-old was on a skiing holiday this week at such a pivotal time, as they feel it sends the wrong signal, according to Sky in Germany's Florian Plettenberg. Well, look at that. Bayern Munich in a bit of bother. Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought it? They play each other as well in the Der Klassiker this weekend. What a game that will be on Saturday evening, Bayern against Borussia Dortmund. That's the title decider, of course. But at the end of the day, look, Julian Nagelsmann, a lot of people have said in recent weeks, recent months, even this season, that he just doesn't look commanding. He just doesn't look like he's got control. He just looks like he's a bit out on his feet, hasn't a clue what he's doing. And that's not something you can have at a huge football club like Bayern Munich. And, I mean, looking at the table, Borussia Dortmund, unbeaten in all of their last 6 games in the league. They have 53 points, Bayern Munich on 52 points. Both played 25 games. Bayern have lost 2 of their last 6 games. It's 3 in total this season, so that shows that there's a change in form. There's something going on there that never usually happens at Bayern Munich. It's been a close title fight, a close fight at the top of the table all season. It's not like this has just come out of nowhere. Bayern Munich have never been properly clear of the rest, as we usually see. That's a good thing for German football as a whole, and there's more competition out there, like Union Berlin, Freiburg, Leipzig, etc., all in with a chance. Borussia Dortmund, of course, they have been totally outcasted for the last good while since they won that title. I think it was under Jurgen Klopp, a good, 10, 11 years ago now. It's about time someone gave Bayern Munich a bit of a test, and they've just sacked their manager quite quickly after that. They panicked. Bayern Munich, they have completely panicked. And going on a skiing holiday in an international break, I mean, get a grip, would you? Really? Like, seriously? What are you doing that for? Like, what an absolute idiot. But no, Thomas Tuchel's the new manager. Of course, was the Chelsea manager, was sacked earlier in the season by Todd Bowley of Chelsea. And, he's a top manager, Thomas Tuchel. He's done it in that league before. He's done it for Borussia Dortmund as well. So, he has the German experience, and he's a German manager, of course. He knows what he's doing, and we'll see what he can give Bayern Munich in the last few months of the season. See, can they get their 11th straight title? Who knows? Let's hope not, though. We want a bit of excitement in German football. It's been the same old for the last God knows how many years. Moving on then to our last story of the week then. And former Manchester United manager Sir Alex Ferguson and ex-Arsenal boss Arsene Wenger have been inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. Ferguson, 81, is the most successful manager in Premier League history with a record of 13 titles. Wenger had won 3 league titles during his 22-year spell in charge of the Gunners. The Frenchman led Arsenal's Invincibles to an unbeaten league-winning season in 2003-2004, and Ferguson and Wenger become the first 2 managers to be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame. Of course, the Hall of Fame launched around 2 years ago. The likes of David Beckham, Dennis Bergkamp, Cantona, Henry, Keane, Lampard, Gerrard and Shearer, the inaugural inductees, and the likes of Aguero, Drogba, Company, Rooney, Schmeichel, Scholes, Vieira and Wright were all added last year. But Wenger and Ferguson become the first two managers to be inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame, and undoubtedly so. Two of the greatest managers that the Premier League has ever seen. No doubts about that one, and no qualms about that one. Very big congratulations to both men at the moment. Very well done to them. Of course, right, that's all we've got to talk about this week. That's all for the LFS podcast. Do follow us on social media as well, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well for LF Streams, at LF Streams 2, our handle on there. We'll have another podcast for you next week, every week for the foreseeable future, talking about the big topics of the week and what's to come on the channel. We've got lots of Premier League action for you this weekend as well. You can see that all on the channel as well as on our socials. Plus, we've launched some merchandise as well on our LFS store. You can get the link to that on our channel banner, also on our About page, and also on all of our social medias. The link will be there in the bios of those channels and platforms. Right, thank you very much for joining us and listening in to the LFS podcast this week. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. But for me, here on the LFS podcast, thank you very much for listening.